Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to make, or at least do my best to show you how to make, a scarf with the pattern of the self-striping yarn on a diagonal. So this video is going to be done in 3 pieces. Okay, on the first part, we're going to be making this first part of our diagonal, which is essentially a triangle. This is going to start from 1 peg and it's going to increase on both sides until you get what you want the width of your scarf to be. Then we will start increasing on one side and decreasing on the other until we get the length of our scarf. And then finally, we will decrease on both sides to get it down to this triangle again on the side. Okay, I'm using a peg with a wide gauge. I got this at Michael's. You want at least 24 pegs for this. And this yarn is the Charisma number 5 yarn that we're working on in Twilight. Okay, so I start off with 1 peg and I'm going to E-wrap twice and knit over. Okay. And that starts with 1, and then I'm going to do that for a second peg. So I'm basically casting on 2 pegs here. Okay. All right, now once I have that one, okay, I am going to, every time I work to the right, I'm going to be E-wrap knit stitching, and every time I work to the left, I'm going to be using the purl stitch, and that gives us this garter ridge edge here. Okay. So I'm going to E-wrap because I'm working to the right, and that's kind of tight because I did pull that original peg very tight there. There we go. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is on this first time, I'm going to increase on the right here, but I'm just going to do that by casting on another peg. So I'm going to E-wrap twice and then knit off. Okay, I'm going to kind of tighten that up. Okay, now I'm going to come around the back of the peg and I want to purl all 3 pegs. So I'm going to purl. And I'm going to purl. And I'm going to purl. Okay, so now we're going to start our increasing on both sides. We've got these 3 pegs. Okay, I'm going to take this stitch off of the far left peg, peg number 3, and I'm going to stretch it over and put it, I'm going to yarn over onto a peg. So now I have this loop on peg number 4, I guess, and then I've got this empty peg. And I'm going to look down, and when you do this, there is a little piece of yarn right here that is, if you pull on it, you can see it's part of that loop. It's like the other side of the loop, so it actually moves. I'm going to take that yarn and I'm going to pull and I'm going to twist it and create a new stitch on this peg. So again, let me pull this off and I'll show you again. Okay. This yarn right here that I have moved over, tighten that up a little bit. If I look over the top, there's a piece that's flat right here. If I tug on that, you can see the loop on the end moving. I'm going to tug on that just a little bit. I'm going to twist it and I'm going to put it on this peg. And now I have an extra stitch. Okay. And you can kind of tug, you make this tight. Now I'm going to E-wrap all the way to the right and knit even this first peg. So I'm going to E-wrap and knit off. And I'm going to E-wrap and knit off and knit off. And I'm going to E-wrap the last peg and knit off. And now I'm going to increase on this side. So again, I'm going to take this loop off and I'm going to pull it over 1 peg. Okay. And then when I look down, there's a little piece of yarn here that's going through the loop. If I tug on that, I can start to see the loop move on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to pull on that just a little bit with either my thing or my fingers, and I'm going to twist it and make it this loop. So now I've got an extra loop on here, and I'm going to pull and tighten all this business up. Okay. And I'm also going to, just so it doesn't get confusing, I'm going to go ahead and pull that yarn off my anchor peg now and poke that through. Sorry about the camera. All right. So my working yarn is here. And again, I'm going to pull it around the right side of the peg. And now I'm going to purl all the way to the end. Okay, purl all the way to the last peg on the left side. Now, once I have that last peg purled, okay, I'm going to pull that stitch off and I'm going to move it one over to the left. So now I have an empty peg. Okay. And again, if I look down, you can see there's this little piece of yarn here. And if you pull it, it's going to move that stitch on the end. So I'm going to pull this, I'm going to twist it up, and I'm going to put it on my empty loop. So I'm creating a new loop on the one that was empty. I'm going to tighten that up. And now, since I'm working to the right, I'm going to E-wrap all of these pegs all the way to the end. So E-wrap all the way to the end. I usually do a few at a time here. Okay, so even that last peg gets E-wrapped. And once I've knitted off on this last peg, again, I'm going to increase on the right again. So I'm going to take this stitch off and I'm going to pull it over and put it on the one peg over to the right. Now I have an empty peg. I'm going to look up. There should be a little piece of yarn right here. If I pull on it, I can see it's moving that last stitch. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to twist it to create a new stitch on that peg. I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to purl all the way to the left. Okay, so you're going to keep doing this. You're going to keep increasing on both sides. And you're going to do this until you have 24 pegs with stitches on them. Okay, so each time I'm going to purl all the way to the left, move the stitch over, do a little twisty, put some yarn on this guy, missing one, and then I'm going to E-wrap all the way to the right. Once I get all the way to the right, I've E-wrapped and knit off. I'm going to pull the right stitch over one. I'm going to pull that extra thread. I'm going to twist it and put it on the empty peg. And then I'm going to purl all the way left. I'm going to go back and forth. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pegs with yarn on them. I'm going to keep going until I have 24 pegs with yarn. Okay, so let's do that and I will meet you back. All right, so I have 24 pegs with yarn on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way 24. And I've just moved that stitch over. I've got my extra loopy loop over here. So I'm ready to E-wrap back in this direction. Okay. So now that I've got the 24 on, I'm going to E-wrap all the way to the end. But this time I'm not going to increase. I'm just going to stay this. I'm going to turn this corner. Okay, so, and bear with me again, this is difficult to do on the camera. So I'm going to E-wrap. All of these and knit off all the way to the end. And now once you get to the end, all the way to the right, we are starting part 2. So the first part of making this bias diagonal here is creating the triangle in the corner. So that's where we start with 1 stitch and we keep increasing 1 each side until you get basically the width of your scarf drooping down out of your loom. Okay, so you increase 1 on each side until you get, and again on my scarf I did 24 pegs, so that's what I'm doing here as well. And So I E-wrap all the way to the right side, and this time I am not going to increase. I'm just going to leave this put. Okay. Now again, what we've got here is that this distance here, right here, which is curved right now, but it won't stay curved. This is going to be the edge of your scarf. Okay. So we're going to start turning a corner. This is how wide the scarf is going to be. So on mine, after it comes off the loom, it was not, it's not too bad there. Okay. Maybe 6.5 inches. Okay. So I'm going to go back this direction. And now what I'm going to do from here on out is I'm going to purl all the way to the end, and I'm always going to increase on the left. And then when I E-wrap the other direction, I'm going to decrease on the right. Okay, so I'm going to purl every peg all the way over to the left side. Okay. So I'm going to purl, possibly. All the way over. Okay, so I'm going to purl all the way to the end, and I'll meet you back there. Okay, so I've purled all the way over. I'm going to purl the last stitch on the left. Okay, and this time, again, I'm going to increase. So I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to put that over one peg over and leave an empty peg. And then I'm going to look for that little piece of yarn that I can twist up and add to my blank peg. Okay, now I'm ready to E-wrap all the way over, but this time, since I've increased on the left, I'm going to decrease on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up this last stitch on the far right, so peg 24, I guess, and I'm going to slip it over and put it on peg 23. Okay, and when I get over here with the E-wrap, I'm going to knit these two together. All right, so back over here, I have increased on the left. So I'm going to E-wrap all the way. After I get done with this video, I'm going to go leave positive comments on everybody who gives free loom knitting videos, because this is very difficult to do. So all those people, Good Knit Kisses and Loom a Hat and Michelle at Love to Loom, we appreciate you. All right, so I've E-wrapped to the end, and now I'm going to knit these two bottom loops over that top one, and now I am ready to purl to the left again. So I'm going to purl, and I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to purl to the left, and I'm going to increase on the left. So I'm going to pull that stitch over just like we've been doing the whole time. I'm going to increase on the left, and then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to E-wrap all the way to the right, but every time before I get to the end, I'm going to pull the last stitch over one and knit two together. So I'm going to increase on the left and decrease on the right, and you're going to keep doing this because we've started to turn our corner here. Okay, we're turning the corner on our scarf. You're going to keep doing this, increase on the left and decrease on the right, until your scarf is as long as you want it to be. Okay, and as soon as it's as long as you want it to be, then we'll enter part 3, where we will start decreasing on both sides to get that finer corner. Okay, so again, you're going to E-wrap every time you go to the right, and you're going to purl to the left. So I'm going to purl all the way to the left. I'm going to increase on this side, and then I'm going to E-wrap all the way on the right. But every time I get to the right, when I get to the last 2 pegs, I'm going to pull that rightmost stitch over and put it on the next to rightmost stitch. And then when I E-wrap it, I'm going to knit 2 together. All right, so do that for as long as you want your scarf to be. Okay, so I've gotten to where I believe my project is long enough. I'm going to be using this for a just neck warmer. And I'm getting to the end of my decrease here. So I'm going to move that stitch over. And knit 2 together. And now I'm ready to work back. So this time, when I go over all the way to the end, this time I'm going to reduce by 1. So I'm going to take this side, and I'm going to pull this stitch off, and I'm going to put it over here. And when I get to the end, I will purl these 2 together. Okay, so I go back with my working yarn, and I will do that. And so the idea is from here on out, I'm going to be decreasing on both sides until I get to a corner. Oh no, I lost one. Put that guy back on there. Try again. And if you've never made a video, you should know that this is incredibly a lot harder to do than when it's sitting on your lap and you're watching TV. So kudos to all those video makers. Okay, so I'm getting here towards the end, and sorry, I'm a little off camera there. So I'm going to purl the next to last stitch, and then I'm going to purl these 2 stitches together. Okay. And just like before, sorry, there we go. Easy as pie, right? This time I'm going to E-wrap this. Okay, and then I'm going to E-wrap all the way to this other side. But I'm going to decrease. Pull this stitch over to here. And when I get to this side, I'm going to decrease just like we've been doing the whole time and knit those two together. Okay. And then I'll work all the way back again. I'm going to keep going back and forth, purling two together on the end, and then knitting two together on the end. Okay. So again, we are going to E-wrap all the way down. When you get to the end, we're going to knit these two together. Okay. Then you're going to come back and you are going to purl this first stitch. Oh, it doesn't want to come off. There we go. Okay, we're going to purl all the way down, but we are going to decrease. So I'm going to pull this guy over and put 2 loops on the second to leftmost post. So I'm going to purl all the way this way, and then I'm going to purl these two together. Then I'm going to E-wrap all the way this way, and I'll just keep reducing side by side by side until I get down to 1 peg. So let's get to doing that, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I'm down to my last 3 pegs, and I have just done my decrease, my purl two together over here. So again, I'm going to E-wrap the peg on the far left. But now, when I go to reduce, I've only got 1 peg to do. So I'm going to move that over, and I'm going to E-wrap. Okay. And then I'm going to purl that first peg. Okay, pull that tight. And I'm going to go ahead and purl this next to last peg. I am kind of making this up right now. Okay. I'm going to move this over to peg number 1. And I'm going to wrap and knit 2 together. Okay. I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in. And pull that through. Okay, get a little tug, okay, and then I'm going to have to sew that end in here and knot it out. But there's our diagonal scarf. Now, I plan on mine to add a few buttons. Okay, so it can be worn as a neck warmer, but not necessarily a scarf. And it has this nice little diagonal thing happening here with the stripes. It's really squishy. Okay, got a nice edge here that matches on both sides. Okay, if your cast off is a little tight, you can kind of give it a nice little stretch. And that's it. So thank you for watching my video.